Hey, good evening, everybody. Good evening. Great to see you all here. Thank you for coming. Welcome to our 5th annual evening presentation of Cultural Conversations. Our theme this evening is Transcending Boundaries, Transforming Communities. Thank you so much for being here tonight. We're not dealing with ice and snow. The weather is a little bit nicer, and now it's spring, so I appreciate your understanding. My name is Carol Ross, and I've had the great honor in creating this program over the past 6 years in my work of community engagement and outreach. In planning for each conversation, our intention is to create a safe space for community connection that inspires change through storytelling, new friendships, awareness of diverse cultures, and common bonds. This program can be especially rejuvenating when there is so much talk in the world right now about division in opinions and beliefs. When we have an opportunity to sit down and listen to one another and the stories that we carry, we can find a place of common ground while celebrating what is different. Let me just tell you, when I do this program, I observe the personal growth we experience with every topic, and I notice visible relaxation in body language with others as we begin to better understand one another, and what we have in common is revealed. I witness the development of new relationships in this vibrant community within the city of Bellevue, with arms of welcome extended wide on the east side. For those who participate fully, we carry this new awareness to our family members, social networks, faith communities, to city government, and into the workplace. Tonight, I'm so pleased to say that we are here to listen to 3 remarkable storytellers, each from places far away from Bellevue. They'll be sharing their stories of transcendence, where in pursuing their dreams, they found themselves in places well beyond what was expected or even comfortable. We will learn from each what was required to help make that journey, and how those experiences have shaped who they are today. So before we move into tonight's program, if I could ask you to please silence your cell phones. I had to make sure I turned mine off. Yes, thank you. And tonight's presentation is being recorded on Bellevue Television, so you'll be able to share it with your friends and family. In just a few moments, I'll give you an overview of what we'll be doing here tonight. So to begin, I'd like to recognize our elected officials who are here. I would like to recognize Council Member Janice Zahn. If you could stand up and let people see who you are. Thank you. Council Member Conrad Lee, if you could please stand. Thank you. Okay. All right. And Mayor Chelmanak is on his way. Thank you for all the support you've provided in this program. So maybe I will just say a few words about Mayor Chelmanak, and maybe he will walk through the door in just a minute here. But what we know about Bellevue Mayor John Chelmanak is that he has been transcending boundaries and transforming community for decades. Mayor Chelmanak, a longtime resident and champion for human services, has served on Bellevue City Council for over 16 years. The mayor is a real person. He's multifaceted, family, career, lots of interests, and he has a lot of stories of his own that he might be able to someday share here at Cultural Conversations, especially sharing stories on transcending boundaries within his own life. So with that, we will move forward in the program, and maybe he will be joining us shortly. Okay. Right now, I'd like to thank all of the volunteers, specifically the community, who walk in partnership with this program. It is only possible with you that we are able to have these cultural conversations. It is your courage, sharing your stories and skills that teach us all how to pause, take a pause for a moment, listen, learn, and continue the conversations. We make these connections one person at a time. I'd like to welcome the youth who are here tonight. from the Bellevue School District, the Youth Link program, YMCA, and those serving as interns with the city. Special thanks to Community Development and its management team, Matt Cummins, Mike McCormick-Huntelman, Mark Heilman, Arun Jain, and my teammates and co-managers throughout the program and everything that we do, Marcy, Cheryl, Natalie, Julie, Teresa, Yang, and our intern, Kira. It certainly does take a village to run and do this program. Finally, we do this program with the support of our city manager, Brad Miyake. And I see Brad in the back, if you can just wave. Thank you. And his management team, thank you. Okay, we're running, I'm gonna kind of shortcut a little bit here. So an overview of this evening. Tonight, during our first hour, you're gonna be hearing from 3 storytellers sharing their stories. I'm sure that you're gonna have questions, but if I can ask you to hold those questions, maybe jot them down on a piece of paper or remember them, the time to connect with them will be later on the concourse and at the tables. When the storytelling concludes about 7:30, I really encourage you to stay. Have you ever gone to a theater production by yourself and you didn't have a chance to share with the rest of, with another group in terms of what that experience was for you? That really is part of this presentation. You're gonna wanna share, your observations of what has been shared by the storytellers and with the people in this room that are gonna provide the special chemistry at the tables. We will have, we'll move out to the concourse and breakout rooms for facilitated table conversations, and we'll have guides that will direct you. We have 2 areas for seating, and we're gonna kind of determine which direction we might have you go. And for those of you who might like to have a quieter place to share, we'll have a couple of conference rooms set aside for that. Okay. So I'd like to introduce Debbie Lacey. We know Debbie as a great friend of Cultural Conversations and storytelling coach for this event. But did you know, over the past 20 years, Debbie has been actively working as an advocate for diverse and marginalized populations in her many roles, such as co-founder of the Eastside Refugee and Immigrant Coalition, or ERIC as we know it, Youth Eastside Services, and Eastside Pathways. Debbie has been a facilitator, intercultural competency consultant to local city governments, certified life coach, and TEDx presenter. It was Debbie who brought National Welcoming Week here to the East Side, where over the past 3 years in September, we have celebrated and strengthened the bonds of newcomers and residents, longtime residents, in over 100 events. Debbie, thank you so much for all you do. Okay, so we're gonna pivot. Before Debbie comes up, yes, Mayor Chelmanak, we can give you a few moments at the podium just to say a welcome. Thank you. Please join me in welcoming Mayor Chelmanak. Okay, all right, let me just shift here.
Well, thank you. I could use the excuse of traffic, but it was really me. I'm sorry for running late tonight. It's great to be here for our program, listen to the stories of our community. I don't think that there is a more important time in our community and in our country than to be having these conversations. It's a very critical juncture of how we bring cultures together, how we bring people together, how we share our commonality and even celebrate those differences. And so I just think at this time, this is such an important conversation for all of us to be having. We condemn hate in all of its forms in this city. I have my next door neighbors are from New Zealand. And last weekend my wife and I were walking down to do something really fun, which was open up our new park. And Jackie came out of the house at that point, and I could tell that there was stress on her face. And I said, "Is everything okay?" And she said, "No, it can't be okay with what happened in New Zealand." And it was that reference of having a neighbor who is from somewhere else, feeling the pain of so many people for the shooting that occurred there. And yet here she is in Bellevue and feeling that pain. So as I say, there is, I don't think, any more important time for us to be having this discussion than now. I was asked to say a couple of words about mentors, and I've had several in my life. One of them got me into politics. I don't know if that was a really good thing. Maybe I shouldn't include him as a mentor. But again, taught me an awful lot about things. But I had one boss back in my days in broadcasting, and that's a tough business. And the way he approached his job was basically to shield everybody else in the organization who were below him for all of that corporate yip-yap that was going on up above him and the battles that he was fighting, and basically to say, you just go out and do the best job you can. Don't worry about ratings. Don't worry about those things. Don't worry if you're number 1 or you're number 10. Do your best job, and if you do that, and everybody does that, we know that we will be number 1 in the ratings. And that was always a message that stayed with me throughout my life. It was that example of encouraging someone to do what they can, to be the best that they can. So thank you all for taking time out of a beautiful spring day to be here, to have, again, what I think is just a very important conversation for all of us to have. And so thank you very much, and I apologize again for being a smidge late.
So Debbie will have you come up. Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Carol, and thank you, Mayor Chelmanak. Great to see all of you. How are you doing tonight? Ready for some stories? Yes, we are ready to get to the stories. I think of stories, each one kind of a stitch in the fabric of our community. Such a gift when one of us tells a story, right, and shares it in a public setting like this, because it really does weave us all together in a very powerful way. So I don't want to delay any longer. I want to get right to our stories, and I'm going to begin with a quick cup of water here for our storyteller. I want to introduce Sujata Agrawal is a longtime friend of Cultural Conversations. She's been volunteering her support and talents to help the program communicate its own story. She then went on to a communications manager position at Eastside Pathways and is currently the communications manager at the Sophia Way. Please welcome Sujata.
The first thing I saw when I woke up after spending the first night in my new apartment was the Space Needle. It stood there tall and proud. I looked at it for the next half an hour, just thinking. I was here in Seattle, finally living here. I could never have imagined or dreamt that one day I would be living across from it, 8,500 miles away from my home in Bombay. The Space Needle and Seattle Center were a must visit when we used to come here. My son would love going to the Children's Museum and watching the movies at the IMAX. And of course, coming from the east side to Seattle was an adventure. Crossing the five-lane I-5 to take the Mercer Street exit requires a high degree of precision and timing. And it's a daunting task even today. I first visited the US as a young kid, way back in the 70s, with my family. It was a totally new world with new experiences. I discovered the escalator. At the hotel where we were staying, the escalator led from the lobby to the restaurant. And after we finished our breakfast, my brother and I would ride it up and down while our parents finished their meal. The other great discovery was cartoons and television. In India, we had one channel in black and white that showed programs on family planning and agriculture for a few hours a day. Here we had cartoons, and we were enthralled with Mickey Mouse and Donald Duck and Flintstones. And our parents would have to cajole and drag us away every morning from the television. We next visited the US in 1980. I was a little older, and we were staying with an uncle in New Jersey for 2 weeks. The first night, he took us to heaven, McDonald's. We would have happily gorged on burgers and French fries and Coke for eternity. I bought my first pair of jeans, Jordache, I remember. I had never owned a pair of jeans before, and to me, jeans was everything that was modern and American. I continued my love affair with television, getting hooked onto shows such as MASH and Tic-Tac-Toe and Love Boat. And my most favorite possession was a TV guide. But America also disappointed me. I had yearned to try Hostess Twinkies, whose advertisement I would see in the back of every comic book that I read. But when I tried it, it was gooey and very synthetic. I visited the US often, but I never thought of moving here. My life, as I understood it, was in India, and I selfishly enjoyed the best of both the worlds: the love and comfort of my family and friends in Bombay, and the fleeting romance with burgers and jeans in the US. It took a divorce for me to take the first steps to move here, and even then, it was many, many years. But finally, in 2015, I left the shores of Bombay, the maximum city, and moved to Seattle, the Emerald City. I often look back and try to think, what was I thinking when I packed the 2 bags, which is all that I brought with me here? I was excited, nervous, definitely. I felt I was starting an adventure and I did not know what to expect. So what I packed with me were a few memories: a shawl that had belonged to my mother, a few books, some picture frames, and of course my collection of elephants. There are people who are cat people and there are people who are dog people. I'm an elephant person, which does not mean I want an elephant as a pet, but I do love collecting them. I picked up my first pair of elephants when I went to Sri Lanka, and ever since, whenever I go to a new city, I try and pick up an elephant that represents the culture. Of course, when my friends come to know that I love elephants, as soon as they see anything with an elephant, they make a present. And I have 2 friends who are sitting right here. Coming to Seattle, I had visited it often enough, so it was familiar but still unknown. And moving to a new city bag and baggage is a just totally different experience. Moreover, I had never lived alone. In India, I grew up sheltered, as most young girls do, with your parents and your father and your brother taking decisions for you. Here, it was as if I'd been given the keys to Freedom City. I was free to do what I want, live the way I wanted to. It was good, but living alone can be lonely, and I didn't have any friends here. Fortunately, I'd never heard of the Seattle freeze. And so I unhesitatingly spoke to people in my apartment building, spoke to people in coffee shops, went for meetups, went for walks, and slowly my circle of friends widened. Living alone also makes you stronger. One morning I went for a walk and I tripped and fell on the sidewalk. No, I was not looking at my cell phone. But there was no one around to rush to me and comfort me or help me, as would have happened in Bombay. I got up and limped back to my apartment to try and clean the wounds. They wouldn't stop bleeding, so I called up a clinic, and fortunately they were able to fit me in. I walked down to the clinic. The doctor cleaned me up, bandaged me, and that was it. No fuss. I felt proud of myself. What I particularly enjoyed were exploring new neighborhoods. Bombay, while the most cosmopolitan city in India, still has a lot of restrictions. For instance, I would have never dreamt of wearing shorts and walking down the streets, or going to a restaurant or sitting in a bar. Here I did all that and much more. I would take the bus and explore new neighborhoods on weekends, and sometimes I rented a car and drove to Vancouver and Portland. I loved doing all of that. But while I was enjoying these new experiences, the business of life was tapping on my shoulder. I needed to get a job. I had had a very successful career in India with one of the largest corporate groups, and I naively thought that that would open doors for me here. But it was not to be. Every job that I applied for, I got rejected. And at those times, I longed for the helping hand of my father, who had got me my first job in the blink of an eye. Let me tell you that story. I had just finished graduating, and my father thought it was time to find a suitable boy for me. But while he was looking, he thought I should take up a job. I was a little introverted, and he thought getting a job would help me build confidence. So he called up a friend, and just like that, I was an account executive in an advertising agency. I was scared, but I soon realized that I loved doing what I did, and I was good at it. Moreover, my boss was a woman who firmly believed that every woman should have a career, and she encouraged and guided me to work. She kind of held up a mirror to me that showed me what I could be, and I'm very grateful to her for that. You can imagine what happened when I told my father I wanted to have a career and not get married. Within 1 month, I was engaged to be married. That did not end well, but I'll spare you the details. What I will say is that crossing that particular boundary made me stronger. It gave me the courage to take many more steps in the future. Here in Seattle, while I didn't have my father, I had friends who helped me to forge a new identity for myself. The best advice I got was to volunteer. It opened a new world for me. It connected me to an amazing community, and it helped me transition and understand the work culture here. Nonprofits are viewed very differently in India. There they're called NGOs or non-government organizations and not considered a favorable path. Here, I got a new perspective in nonprofits and philanthropy. It also gave me the opportunity to continue storytelling, which I had done back in India. And I was extremely fortunate to tell the untold and unheard stories in my very first assignment, the story of cultural conversations. It's an amazing program where you get to meet women from across the world, from different cultures, different walks of life, who share their journey and their challenges. And it's only when you attend a meeting of cultural conversations that you understand the meaning of the phrase, "We are alike, not different." Now I work for two amazing organizations, the Sophia Way, which supports women experiencing homelessness into housing, and Eastside Pathways, a partnership of more than 70 organizations that work together to ensure that every child thrives in school and in life. Knowing that what I do can make a difference has been deeply motivating and very satisfying. I look back at the 4 years that I've been here and think of what I've achieved, and I feel proud of myself. It's not easy to start life afresh in a new country. You have many doubts, you face many challenges, and you often think, do I fit in? At one interview, someone suggested I call myself Sue instead of Sujata, but I didn't feel like a Sue. And so it's really, really important to keep your identity. It's interesting that now when I go back to India, I struggle to fit in. I miss Seattle, the blue skies, the mountains, and even the rainy days. I've been here a short while, but I feel I've lived here forever. I leave you with a mantra that I carry with me. That was then, this is now. And that's how I try to live my life here, leaving behind the old and embracing the new. I'm very grateful to all the friends I've had who've been there with an encouraging word and a hug. And I'm very grateful to be here to share my story with you. Thank you for listening.
Thank you, Sujata, for being our brave first storyteller of the night. Our next storyteller, Poe Bowden, is a Bellevue Youth Link alum. How many in here know Poe? Raise your hands. Oh, my goodness, lots of hands went up. also a former intern in Bellevue's Planning and Community Development Department. Oh, whoops. I'm so sorry. We need to fast forward a little bit here, if you don't mind. Could you cue that up for us, Ying, please? I had that mixed up. So sorry. So Poe grew up in Bellevue and is currently working as an analyst for Amazon. And we're so pleased he could come back here. I was listening and watching him come in today and get ready for tonight's presentation as he was saying hello and being greeted by so many fellow people here at Bellevue that he remembers well, talking about anything, changes that have happened since he's been away, went to college and graduated, and I won't share too much of his story, but it was a real pleasure to see him connecting with everyone again and seeming to be back to his second home here at Bellevue City Hall. So, Poe, welcome back. Welcome back to Cultural Conversations and to Bellevue City Hall. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Jirawat Chitpakta Bodin. JIRAWATCHITPHAKDIBODIN. That is my full Thai name. It's 22 letters, and it's been a product of many blank stares and confused looks. I remember when I was growing up, whenever we went to grocery stores, the cashier would always pause when addressing my mom. Thank you, miss. I also remember dreading the first day of school or when I had a substitute teacher. When the teacher went down the attendance list, there was a sudden confused expression and pause. Before pretty much on cue, I would say, "You can just call me Poe." Eventually, when my family became U.S. citizens, we changed my last name to a simple, or my name to a simple Poe Bodin. But the Jirawat Chitpakta Bodin has always stayed with me. Though it's been an inconvenience, at times an embarrassment, I've always cherished my heritage as a Thai immigrant. My parents are both from Thailand, but I was born in Singapore. Hence the namesake of my nickname, Poe, from Singapore. Bodin comes from the last 5 letters of my long last name, in case anyone has already remembered. Now don't worry, there won't be a test. I spent the first few years of my life in Thailand where I was part of a very tight-knit family. I come from a very large Thai-Chinese clan where my parents have a combined 11 siblings. My grandparents have even more siblings, which amounts to an uncountable number of aunts, uncles, cousins, all the way to third cousins twice removed. Unlike most families in the States, Thai-Chinese families are very large, yet banded together. There is no notion of extended family, just family. Multiple generations and family live together under one roof, and parents raise children among grandparents. And to the chagrin of perhaps my own parents, this is why I have still not moved out of their house. But all this changed when I was 3 years old, when my dad got a job at Microsoft and moved our family to Bellevue. My large Thai family became just the 3 and later 4 of us. I have only vague memories of moving to a new foreign world. But since I was so young, I was able to pick up English very quickly. Through the years of public schools, summer camps, after-school activities, and volunteering, my family assimilated to a new Bellevue lifestyle. I grew up playing baseball at Ivanhoe Park, attending the Strawberry Festival every summer at Crossroads, and adapting my palate to adoring burgers and fries. But although I felt like I fit in, especially given how diverse Bellevue is, I did feel somewhat disconnected from the Bellevue community. This feeling was enhanced every time I came back from spending a long summer in Thailand. I could feel the absence of not being around my large, multi-generational family. At the beginning of high school, I joined the Bellevue Youth Link program, since I needed to find volunteer hours. For those of you who don't know, Bellevue Youth Link is a City of Bellevue government youth leadership program that aims to engage young people in helping the community of Bellevue by linking student volunteers with city officials and community members. This was the first step in my journey to become more connected to the Bellevue community. Before YouthLink, Bellevue City Hall felt somewhat ethereal to me. I didn't know who the mayor or city council members were, let alone what they were responsible for. I haven't even heard of a city manager. Even though I've lived here for more than 10 years, YouthLink was my first immersion into the greater Bellevue community. YouthLink opened many doors and connected me to many lifelong friends, mentors, and role models, many of whom are in the audience today. YouthLink empowered me to not only learn about the programs in the city of Bellevue, but also that, even as a teenager, my voice mattered, and that I myself could make an impact in my community, regardless of my age or how long I've been in Bellevue. Whether I was representing a teenager in youth court or organizing jackets at the Kids Care coat drive, I felt involved and empowered. No longer was I an outsider looking in, I was now driving decisions that impacted my community. In my senior year of high school, through my experience in YouthLink, I got an opportunity to intern with the City of Bellevue's Planning and Community Development Department, or PCD. Although I stuck out like a sore thumb, being 10 years younger than everyone in the department, and for some people 45 years, I'm sorry, Chris. YouthLink prepared me extremely well, and it took me a couple of weeks to get to know my entire department. In doing so, I stuck my head in many diverse projects, from economic development to neighborhoods. In fact, one of these projects, 4 years ago in February 2015, was organizing the very first Cultural Conversations Night. I was here, standing in your shoes as an audience member. The fact that I'm here, speaking to everyone at now the 5th annual Cultural Conversations Night, is a testament to how far our department has come and how blessed I am to still be connected to PCD. Throughout that year, the laughter during our staff meetings and the frequent wisdom imparted on me by my colleagues when we chatted about everything and nothing reminded me of my big family gatherings in Thailand. With this new family, I shared the proudest day of my life, a day that would change my life forever. College decision day landed in the middle of my internship, and I remember coming into the office that day feeling incredibly nervous. As I sat through staff meetings, my coworkers, who followed my college journey with great concern, were extremely comforting and encouraging. As my mind was going through millions of thoughts and doubts, my coworkers reassured me that no matter where I ended up, I would have their unconditional support. When I finally got back to my desk at the end of the day and opened the email from the admissions office and jumped in joy when I found out that I was going to Columbia University, the entire department, who were also distracted from their tasks, joined me in celebration. Every hug and high five, every congratulations and good jobs from my colleagues meant the world for me, and I cherished every second of that day. And here I felt limitless, not in the fact that I was admitted to college, but in the fact that I always had people around me who I could always trust. And at the end of what felt like a long, climactic day, as I was ready to go home, I noticed a card on my desk. I opened the card and saw that everyone in the department had signed and written a personal note to me, wishing me the best as I entered this new journey. I still keep this card today as one of my most cherished possessions, and I read from it from time to time to reminisce on the amazing year I had in PCD. It may have taken the entire year to sink in, but the camaraderie and togetherness that our PCD department shared made me feel like I never left Thailand. At Columbia, I made it my goal to bridge the values of civic engagement and youth involvement that I was nurtured on in Bellevue City Hall with my home in Thailand. However, politically and culturally, Thailand would not be very conducive to a program like YouthLink. Thailand is a very hierarchical and traditionalist country. In the last 80 years, we've been through 19 coups d'etats, that's around 1 in every 5 years, 25 general elections, and 20 different charters or constitutions. Up until Sunday, the most recent coup has left Thailand under yet another military junta, suspending the democratically elected constitutional parliament. And on Sunday, the national election, reinstated the junta in power. Democracy is something foreign to Thailand. With this challenge in mind, the best decision I ever made at Columbia was to join the Symposium program. Symposium is a student organization that takes Columbia's core curriculum and teaches snippets of that curriculum to local schools in Asia. I started Symposium in Thailand, where we taught civics and political philosophy to local high school students. We read novels like Animal Farm and Lord of the Flies, and we discussed how these novels informed us about Thai society. This was a huge culture shock for my students, as the educational system in Thailand is primarily focused on preparing for examinations through rote memorization. As a discussion-based seminar, quite similar to cultural conversations, I encourage my students to focus on not finding right or wrong answers, but to think about which questions were most important for their society and to consider different perspectives. This skill may be the strongest counterweight against tyranny and corruption, even more so than drafting new laws or electing new leaders. Democracies do not appear overnight. They require time and cultivation. Nevertheless, the investment is always worth it. I have proudly taught Symposium in Thailand for the last 3 years, and I plan on continuing every year when I return home. I want to share 2 of the most important lessons I've learned. First, in order to truly be part of a community, you must get involved in the community. City government and community programs are not a spectator sport. Attend city hall meetings. Apply for a position on a city board. Volunteer for YouthLink. Attend cultural conversations. Meet someone who you've never met before tonight and have a coffee chat with them. Expand your horizons beyond just your family and close friends. You can't complain about being left out if you do not do your part. Secondly, as one of the younger individuals in the room, I urge the older people to reach out to young people. Be a mentor. Be a role model. We hear a lot about gender division or racial segregation, but we must never forget about the generational gap. Especially in this day and age when it's easy for young people to plug in and tune out, youth need to feel valued. We want and need to set our own agenda and believe that adults are listening, that our opinions matter, and what we are feeling is real, true, and important. Civic engagement and bridges between adults and young people are not just components of my feel-good story. The stakes of this are much, much higher. It's vital to our democracy, both present and future. It's vital to our community, not as individuals in isolated corners, but an ecosystem of diverse cultures and perspectives. It's vital to a flawed democratic country in Thailand, as much as it is vital to a bustling mid-range city in Bellevue. It's as vital to a 17-year-old starting out life as it is for a 65-year-old heading into retirement. As shown in Thailand, writing a new constitution, drafting new laws do not guarantee democracy and effective governance. Democracy everywhere comes down to its people. A community is only as democratic, as ethical, as inclusive, as enlightened as its people. We need to empower, educate, and include every person in our society, especially starting at a very young age. And if it wasn't for amazing people such as Helena Stevens, Patrick Alina, Glenn Russo, Emil King, Carol Ross, you would not be here tonight listening to a kid named Jirwat Chapaktaboden. I'm happy to say that I belong in both places. I found a larger family here in Bellevue. And although Bellevue is starkly different from my home in Thailand, I've come to realize how many Thai values and beliefs carried over to my city government experience. Being in a family with many elders and many generations gave me the confidence to talk to and seek wisdom from adults. Spending valuable time with my family and cherishing the little time I have with them taught me the importance of service to others, teaching me to never take my community for granted. And in the spirit of cultural exchange, I'll continue to export the values that I've learned here in Bellevue to my native Thailand. Thank you.
Thank you, Poe. Okay. At this time, it's my great pleasure to introduce another person who's no stranger to Bellevue. Danny Munoz has been a public servant working for the city of Bellevue for over 10 years in different departments, and most recently received a promotion to serve as a real property agent with the city of Bellevue. Her work role is only one part of her identity, and we're about to hear more of her whole story. Please welcome Danny.
Hello, everybody. Full room. This is nice and comforting. In order to work in Bellevue, we have to be able to speak, write, understand English. That was not the case when I first came to this country. So to share my immigrant experience, we're going to reminisce a little bit with my husband. 20 years ago, he was my interpreter. So today I will be telling my story in Spanish. Hope you enjoy it. Para entender mi historia, primero hay que entender las etnias representadas en mi apariencia física. Nací en Santiago de Chile, descendiente de...
To understand my story, you must first understand the history of the many ethnicities represented in my physical looks. I was born in Santiago, Chile, a descendant of
los primeros conquistadores españoles,
early Spanish conquistadors,
personas africanas traídas a Sudamérica por portugueses,
African people brought to South America by the Portuguese.
pero el gen más predominante en mi genealogía es de la tribu mapuche, nativos del sur de Chile.
The most predominant gene in my genealogy is from the Mapuche tribe, southern Chilean natives, the only pre-Hispanic culture never fully conquered by the Spanish conquistadors.
La única cultura prehispánica nunca conquistada por los conquistadores españoles. Pero ninguna de estas etnias o la razón para mezclarse fue la razón por la que llegué a Estados Unidos.
None of their background or reasons for mixing brought me as an immigrant to the U.S.
La razón por la que me convertí en un inmigrante a esta tierra fue el matrimonio.
The reason for me to become an immigrant to this land was marriage.
La historia de migración de mi esposo Cristian fue un poco más dramática y complicada.
Christian, my husband's story, was far more dramatic and complicated.
En 1973 hubo un golpe militar en Chile.
In 1973, there was a military coup in Chile.
Mi suegro, por razones políticas, fue enviado a un campo de concentración en el centro de Santiago.
My father-in-law, who was sent to a concentration camp in the middle of downtown Santiago, the capital city of Chile.
Más tarde, en el 1976, su padre fue liberado bajo la estricta condición de exilio para él y sus parientes más cercanos.
Later in 1976, his dad was to be released under the strict condition of exile for him and his closest relatives.
La familia Muñoz inmigró a la remota y nunca antes escuchada ciudad de Seattle, Washington.
This forced the Munoz family to immigrate to the remote and never heard before city of Seattle, Washington.
A él y su familia no se le permitió volver a Chile hasta el 1990, cuando terminó el golpe militar.
The Munoz family was the third exiled Chilean family to arrive in the state.
Mi esposo Cristian era un bebé de 11 meses cuando sus padres lo sacaron de Chile.
My husband, Christian, was an 11-month-old baby when his parents took him from Chile.
Conocí a mi esposo en 1996 en su primer viaje de regreso a Chile después del exilio.
I met my husband in 1996 on his first trip back to Chile after exile.
Nos casamos en el verano de 1998.
We were married in the summer of 1998.
Me mudé a Seattle un mes después y me convertí en ciudadana estadounidense 3 años y medio después.
I moved to Seattle a month later and became a U.S. citizen 3.5 years thereafter.
Tenemos 2 hermosos hijos, Moisés, que tiene 18 años, y Daniel, de 8 años.
We now have 2 sons, Moises, who is 18 years of age, and Daniel, who is 8.
He trabajado como servidora público en la ciudad de Bellevue por más de 10 años en los departamentos de policía, utilidades y el nuevo departamento de finanzas y gestión de activos, FAM.
I have become a public servant for over 10 years in the city of Bellevue, working with the police department, utilities, and the new FAM Finance and Asset Management Department.
Mi esposo fue agente de policía durante 17 años en la ciudad de Issaquah.
My husband was a police officer for 17 years in the city of Issaquah.
Qué contradicción, después de haber sido supuestamente etiquetado como terrorista por la Policía Militar de Chile cuando era un bebé de 11 meses.
What a contradiction, after being allegedly labeled as a terrorist by the military police of Chile as an 11-month-old child.
Experiencias, lo bueno, lo malo y lo feo.
Experiences, the good, the bad, and the ugly.
Aprendí inglés estudiando inglés como segundo idioma y viendo Friends con Ross and Rachel.
I learned English by studying English as a second language and by watching Friends with Ross and Rachel.
Pero nunca estuve libre de estereotipos, como eres el mexicano más alto o la mexicana más alta que he conocido, comentario hecho por un médico mientras trabajaba como intérprete.
Also, never free of stereotypes. I was told, "You're the tallest Mexican I've ever met," comment made by a doctor while I was working as a medical interpreter.
O latina, eso te convierte en católica, ¿cierto?
So you're a Latina, which makes you a Catholic, right?
O recientemente, ¿eres legal? ¿O tú o alguien de tu familia tuvo que pasar por esas instalaciones en el sur?
And recently, are you legal? Did you or any of your family go through one of those holding facilities?
El concepto de raza o ser diferente.
The concept of race or being different.
Pensar que algunas personas pensaron y todavía que soy diferente era extraño para mí antes de venir a los Estados Unidos.
Thinking about why some people thought or still think I am different was a foreign concept to me before coming to the U.S.
Pero rápidamente me familiaricé con él, pero nunca hasta el punto de adaptarme a uno de esos cuadros de verificación que ponen de raza al marcar los formularios de inmigración.
I quickly became familiar with it, but never to the degree of fitting myself into one of the race checkboxes you must mark when completing immigration forms.
Después de todo, no encajo completamente en ninguna de esas etiquetas ya definidas.
After all, I don't fully fit into any defined label.
Puedo llamarme curiche, mapuche para una persona de piel oscura,
I can be called curiche. It's Mapuche for a dark-skinned person.
o simplemente mapuche por los parientes de mi madre,
Or a plain Mapuche by my mother's relatives.
o una latina por mi ascendencia que proviene del mundo hispano.
Or Latina because of some of my ancestry that comes from the Hispanic world.
Pero siempre me he considerado como una mujer, una amiga y una hija de Chile.
But I've always considered myself a girl, a friend, and a daughter of Chile.
Hasta ahora, esos eran y siguen siendo los muchos cuadros.
Until now, those were and still are my many checked out boxes.
Y se suman a la lista que soy madre, esposa, hija y una trabajadora de la ciudad de Bellevue, y también una orgullosa miembro de la comunidad.
Adding to the list, I'm a mother, a friend, a daughter, an employee for the city of Bellevue, and a proud member of this community.
Whew, bear with me for the rest of the story. Back in January, we put to rest our first family member outside of Chile. The woman you see in the picture, she was Christian's grandmother. She was a strong woman, born in the 20s in Chile. She had a very, very hard life. Nonetheless, she was always planting seeds in people around her, especially in women. Always letting you know how strong you are, and you are way stronger than what you think. And please, always use your hands. You need to learn to use them because that's the last resource if it comes to it. Of course, she taught that to my mother-in-law. My mother-in-law, when she came here with a baby and a very damaged husband, took that lesson to heart. For over 30 years, she's been serving the community as a nurse. Then she planted that seed into her son, Christian. The same seed that she wanted to invest in him was, don't let your situation dictate who you will become. Christian and I became public servants. We've been at it for more than 20 years, serving this community. And we're passing the passion and planting the seeds in our sons, Moises and Daniel. My Moises is graduating this year from high school, already an accomplishment for a first generation born in the US. His dream is to become a doctor in order to help others and keep the family tradition. You see, seeds of a dream have nothing to do with the environment you're in, the place you're in, or the environment that surrounds you. What you see as dirt, an adverse situation, judgmental people putting you in boxes, the color of your skin, or how big your dreams are, that's just the dirt around you. This is why Martin Luther King said, I have a dream. I don't have a vision or a passion, or I have a purpose or a wish. He referred it as a dream because dreams are bigger, based on unbelievable circumstances, altogether fantastic, improbable, and quite impossible. Nonetheless, they have an unexplainable power, especially for younger people. If not, try to tell a young person, don't do that, and they will turn around and probably do it. When you believe in your dream, that's when, and only then, that dirt becomes soil. Because soil is where you get your nutrients, minerals, organic matter, and the power to grow. This is when being rooted in a community becomes the catalyst that helps others grow their seeds. Being a community leader will also help you achieve your own dreams. If not, at least, just like our grandma, use your intimate circle and try to make an impact. Everyone here tonight can go back home and not only be present, but be a present for those around you that will suffer the most if you don't go back home today. Be good to those that you're irreplaceable to. And finally, son, we went down to Chile last month, and you saw the soil where our family grew from and where you're from. Now you will take that with you forever. And it is my commitment to this community to go back home and take the best with me, not what is left of me. Thank you.
Just want to say thank you to those amazing storytellers. I hope you got a good glimpse of people that have come from so far away, so many different countries, that had this experience, this dream, and have landed here in Bellevue, where they have transcended boundaries, and they are transforming community in small ways and very, very large ways. It's just the beginning. When we hear that was then, this was now, from Sujata, Poe, I belong in both places, and the seeds of the dream that Daniela is planting with her family, and her family has planted here in the Pacific Northwest, Bellevue. So thank you very much. I just want to give them a round of applause again. Thank you.